I got interested in doing this, mainly I was looking for something to do when I had some free time. I'd run to Flagstaff every now and then, get an oil change or something, and I hate going to town. So in order to make it a more positive experience, I started poking around some of the caves around Mount Eldon, which I first became familiar with back in the early 80s when I was living in Flagstaff. This is an aerial view of Eldon. It's a Dacite dome, about 500,000 years old. The areas that we're going to talk about primarily are Mount Eldon Cave up there and the area around Satan's Cave. The Arizona Trail runs right by Mount Eldon and possibly Satan's. I'm not sure where it's located in there, but I first stumbled on Mount Eldon Cave in the 80s. Just looking for a place to do a little rock scrambling and whatnot. And it was an interesting cave, and I was intrigued by this little bit of early, we could call it vandalism. It's nicely done. It's actually chiseled into the rock. And, you know, I don't know if this is the first encounter of the cave by a non-indigenous person, but it's certainly one of the earlier ones. And this cave, as it turns out, I didn't know it at the time. I mapped it, but Joe Corney had originally noted this cave, and Tom Ramsey actually mapped it. And he came up with the concept that, well, you know, this is kind of unusual. He actually thought it was a solution cave. He saw things in it he thought were anastomoses, and he really believed that you know, possibly, you know, there was some sort of calcite in there. And he gives a chemical analysis down here in the bottom. And there's a little closer view of the map. And notice Dr. Frankson, he's got Rigby, North Dakota, rather than Rugby, North Dakota. A little bit of an error, but not a bad map for the time. This is an updated version of my map. It's a little more complex than what he had shown, but it's actually formed along the, I don't know if you'd call it a bedding plane, but along the layers of the flow structures. Dacite comes out as a very thick, viscous mass and flows very slowly, and so it forms these beds. And so when you go into the cave, you know, it's actually horizontal, but it runs along the face of the hillside like this, and it has several entrances. This is the northwestern entrance. You know, you can easily walk right past it, but you know, if you look in there, it's like, oh, there's kind of a hole there. And you go up and you look, and gee, you know, there's even more of a hole. And, oops. Then you, oops, I'm going to back up here. Then you look to the right, you see this thing that looks like, does look like a solution cave. Well, it's easy to see where Ramsey might have gotten some of his ideas, or maybe even a lava tube, which, given the nature of Dacite, seems unlikely. But this is the main entrance. It's actually a pretty good sized cave inside. As you can see, this is looking back toward the other entrance. I mean, this is, you know, 10, 12-foot high passage here. And it's quite aesthetically pleasing passage. It's a small cave, you know, it's only a couple hundred feet long. But, and if you look the other direction, you can see it's weathering out along this bedding plane structure. And it has several little skylights like this. Now you do see some cave coral here in this photo. I just happened to notice this putting this material together. And so there is a little calcite there, assuming that is calcite. I haven't been back to the cave since I've noted this. It could be some kind of siliceous material, you know. But the cave plugs at the end in a fill. So, you know, he had come up with this idea that might be a solution cave. I think this is a better explanation. This is the actual mineralogical sequence of the Mount Eldon Dacite, and most of it, you can see, is actually feldspars, plagioclase and orthoclase feldspars. These feldspars alter to primarily kaolinite, but also other clays through hydrolysis. And I think what's created these caves and some of the other interesting erosional features on the mountain is basically this process of turning to clay, and clay particles are easily removed by water. And this is probably a pretty efficient process, and this mountain's only been there 500,000 years. And of course, there are other influences on this paleogenesis. Exfoliation, which is very much enhanced by the development of these clay minerals. And of course, the freeze-thaw cycles, there's other chemical and mechanical erosion going on. And of course, like I mentioned before, these layers and lobes of the mountain itself influence the structures. So what about Dr. Frankson? A friend of mine did a little research. This is all we know about him. I came across a poem, actually, in a climber's blog, referring to an area called the Doctor's Office, and mentioned that he also had inscribed his name at the same time in Oak Creek Canyon. I haven't been there yet. It's some sort of a damp little grotto in the sandstone. But it's interesting. He got married about that time, so maybe he was down on his honeymoon. We don't know. But so the current name is Mount Elgin Cave. I have a little bit of problem with that. You know, the traditional way is to use the oldest name, but it's such a generic term. There's lots of caves on Mount Elgin, and I'm wondering if maybe Frankson's Cave might be a better name. On the other hand, you don't want to name a cave for a vandal, so. You know, the cave is in pretty good shape. I originally called it Plastic Jesus Cave because there was a little santo and some votive candles in there, and but they've been removed. And the only other sign other than Frankson is there is some recent graffiti there, but it's generally in pretty good shape. This is the Satan's Cave area. Satan's Cave gets its name because it's below a rock formation known as the Devil's Chair. And but you can see the surface of the rock here. It is very karst-like even on the surface. And but you can also see the very active exfoliation that's going on here in this photo. So, you know, it's not exactly a karst process, but it is karst-like. There's our buddy Bob. Probably one of the last caves he was in. I call this the Bat Fissure. This is near Satan's Cave. There are several fissures like this in the area. This one's probably has about 150 feet of passage. But it's quite large inside and roomy, and I have seen bats in there. The area is reputed to be utilized by Townsend's and Allen's bats both, which is another reason to document these caves better. This is the lower portion of Satan's Cave, which the lower portion is a boulder pile, and it's quite roomy inside. You go in, and these are very large boulders, like, you know, half the size of this room, some of them. This is my survey method. Doing a lot of this solo, just because I can run up there and do it in a few hours, and it's a very safe cave to wander around in. I'm not really sticking my neck out too much, but this is anybody who does any solo cave surveying, I highly recommend climbing gear as a method to, and you don't get any back talk from this. You can take your time sketching, nobody complains, you know, nobody's getting cold. This is the map I'm working on. It's pretty basic still. It's pretty messy, but that's the way the cave is. You can see the lower portion down here on the left. This is the boulder pile portion. And then over here in the right, and portions that aren't yet surveyed in the middle, there's actually, you know, slump blocks that are pulling away from the face of the mountain. And then the very upper right-hand side there, the actual cave is developing, you know, back in as fissures along the joints and planes. And then there's a little profile which pretty much follows the bedrock at the base. But they've got more to do there. There's about 600 feet of survey here. When I started, I thought I'd have 350 feet maybe. And there's probably going to be over 1,000 feet. So this is actually a pretty long cave. It's unfortunately been a bit impacted, as you can see. There is garbage, there is graffiti, and it's not just in one or two places. And some places it's really bad. And this is the challenge I hope to address in the near future, is to clean this graffiti up. And if anybody here is interested in either helping document these caves or working on to remove this, I think a lot of this was done in a fairly short period of time, and I think if it was removed, we can make a big difference there. Most of this trash is gone now. I clean a little bit up every time I go in to survey. Ryan Beam and his mother and father came along one day, and we wandered up there and filled about 4 garbage bags. And so it's starting to look cleaner. The cave is quite pleasing. You know, I know it's just a tailless cave, you know, it's not one of these more interesting limestone or lava tube or something else, but it actually is a really fun cave to wander around in, and as are many of these caves. And there's some good photographic opportunity, not that my photos show that very well, but lots of big fissure passages that clamber around in. This is along the slump box, that's Ryan Beam up at the top there. It's good rock, and you can get lost in there for quite a while. Every time I go back in there, I find more stuff I wasn't aware of, which is why the cave keeps getting longer. And of course, bats utilize this area, as do other wildlife, canyon wrens and whatnot, like cool, dark places. Probably garbage. Let's see here. No, it wasn't a survey take. Yeah. I thought it was fishing back. Well, anyway, as you can see, there's some serious work to be done here yet. So if anybody's interested in working on this, do contact me. Let me have your contact information. The speleogenesis of this is similar to Eldon Cave, but it's more than just a boulder pile. You do get, again, this solution-like process. You can see, even at close-up, that very much resembles limestone, even though, of course, it's not a solution process. But as you're up against the actual mountain itself, you get these fissure passages. Some of them can be quite extensive and quite deep. And then, of course, you start getting slump blocks pulling away along those fissures in areas, and then more aggressive weathering, and finally into these boulder piles like this. This is looking down about 20 feet into the entrance area of the cave. This is the area. Now, this is a very small area that this cave is actually in. It's probably an acre, if it's that much. And, you know, like I said, I've surveyed 600 feet in there so far. So it's a fairly highly dense concentration of passages. And here you can see the character of the mountainside. If you look over to the east on Mount Eldon, you start seeing areas like this, where it looks to me like there could be significantly larger caves. This is sort of for the future, is to kind of look in these other areas. And I hiked up here back in the early '80s. I was curious about some of this weathered area, and it's actually kind of treacherous. Actually, some of this stuff requires some vertical work to properly explore. But I think there's probably caves up there that maybe 2,000 feet long. Oops, and that's I wanted to show one more slide here, but I don't know how to back up on this. There we go. This one here, these big long columnar joints, it's one of the areas that I think might be quite productive for caves. But there could be other resources up there. There may be paleontological resources, archaeological resources. There are no trails up into these rocks. And one advantage of the fire which burned over Mount Eldon back in the late '70s is it did expose a lot of this. So it's pretty accessible. It's just taking the time to run up there, and hopefully I'll get a chance to do that later. So anyway.